Yes, you. I just saw you on LinkedIn. You're looking for a new opportunity and you don't know, do I want to keep staying in the same career? Maybe I'm going through a divorce. Maybe I'm a divorced dad and I need guidance. Whatever it is. Hi, it's me, Tommy. Welcome to another episode of Blending in the Family, the podcast. But before we get started, I just want to talk to you about Blending the Family coaching program. Here's what I want you to do. Here's what I'm asking you to do. Go to blendingthefamily.com, click on coaching program, and then click on calendar. Let's set up a 30-minute free talk. You and I see where you want to go. Where do you want to be in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? Again, blendingthefamily.com, click on coaching program, click on calendar. Yes, let's get to this brand new episode of the podcast. Welcome to another edition of the podcast known as Blending in the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney. How are you? Are you at the dog park right now? You doing laps on the bike before it starts to snow and the weather turns? But you're probably one of those people that it doesn't matter what the weather is. You're still on your bike. Good for you. I pawned my bike years ago. Yeah. Sad story, but that's okay. Hopefully this coming summer I'll get a new bike. I miss being on the bike. I miss going out on long rides. I miss just being in the saddle. Being in the saddle. Back in the saddle again. I know. Tommy, what a great voice you don't have. How are you doing? You doing good? I am so happy you're here. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, hi, I'm Tommy. Thanks for coming by. I'm your host. And you're probably here because my guest is Shannon Carpenter. Brand new book. I'm a little mad and I'm a little jealous, and mostly mad and mostly a lot jealous because Shannon's book, it was one of those where you sit there and you go, well, that was my idea. And I told people that my next book was going to be about being a stay-at-home dad, and Shannon Carpenter's new book is called The Ultimate Stay-at-Home Dad, Your Essential Manual for Being an Awesome Full-Time Father. And I wanted to write a stay-at-home dad book. I had the cover already picked out in the cover of the book, and if I can find it, you know what, let me jot that down for show notes. If I can find it, I'm sorry, looking at some notes. I'm going to add this to the show notes. Picture of stay at home dad book. So I had a picture already for the cover of the book. And then I see through LinkedIn Shannon and his book, and then he's on all the major TV networks, and I'm like, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can put a stay-at-home dad book out. I don't know. Shannon did a great job in his book, and we'll talk about that. So anyway, how are you doing? You're doing, I don't know. How are you doing? Because you stopped writing. You don't call me anymore. You don't text. So I don't know how you're doing. I'm in a undisclosed location. I'm not going to mention where I'm at. I will say it's a city in the United States that I've never, ever, ever, ever been a fan of. Never. Just not a fan. Not a fan. Sorry. You have in this city great sports. I will mention that. But I hate your city. I did say hate. I hate your traffic. And I hate the fact that if you take one wrong turn, now that's 20 minutes out of your time. I do. I'm not a fan. I'm just not a fan of this city. Okay? What else is going on? So, my dad's advice at 5:04 a.m., the book. Each time we do this podcast, and again, if this is your first time listening, I wrote a book called My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m. that you can pick up and order at mydadsadvicebook.com, which is also in the show notes. And we're there. We're close. I'm hoping before Christmas now. It's all my fault. It's always my fault. Oh, I got water. I just realized I got water. Hold on. Let me grab some water. Let's try this experiment. Poland Springs is what I'm drinking. Poland Springs. I like Poland Springs. I've had not only the facility where I'm staying, we'll say, gave me Poland Springs water, but a restaurant I went to today gave me Poland Springs water. And I like Poland Springs water. Anywho, I digress. The book. So the book is... It's done. Technically, it's done. And just some formatting. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. But please support me. Please help me. My headphone just fell out. Or little headphoney thing. So please, mydadsadvicebook.com, mydadsadvicebook.com. Please order. I got a message from my buddy Taj. I haven't heard that yet about how bad the book sales are. And I don't mean to be negative, but I'm really bad at self-promotion. I'm really bad at putting myself out there. And I feel my purpose in life is to showcase and spotlight other people, just like today with Shannon and his book. So I need to be better at that. I need to be, on the social and doing things. So anyway, what else is going on? Talked about the book. I don't know what else to say, really. I know there's things I wanted to talk about, but anyway. So Shannon Carpenter, hilarious, funny dude. My gosh, I had a blast with Shannon. Here, I'm just going to read his bio that he sent me over. So Shannon lives near Kansas City, has been a stay-at-home dad since 2008. He's also a humor writer, trained through the famous Second City. Gosh, I love Second City. Whether writing social satire or parenting essays, he is always able to find your funny bone and leave you with a lasting impression. He has done public readings on local NPR affiliate KCUR and teaching through At Home Dad Network, the Dad 2.0 National Conference. One day I'm going to make it. One day I'm going to make Dad 2.0. If you ever heard the story, I was supposed to be there, and I got snowed in, and I couldn't make it to beautiful San Diego. What else? Man, he's been in Forbes, Wall Street Journal, New York Times. Yeah, and I am so happy to have Shannon on this episode. I am honored, too, because he's, like I said, Shannon was making the rounds of major networks. And I reached out to him as soon as I saw the post on LinkedIn. And I said, hey, Shannon, would you come on my little podcast here? And he's like, sure, no problem. And so we did it. The Ultimate Stay-at-Home Dad. Your essential manual for being an awesome full-time father. Some of the topics we talk about, which, some of it comes out of the book, but we also talk about something that's very important to a lot of us men here in the month of November is Movember, there we go, uh, specializing in men's mental health. And we talk about a lot about men's mental health. But Shannon's book, how he started out as a stay-at-home dad, why he wrote the book. One of the other things too we talk about is dealing with your mental health. And it's really, when I was a stay-at-home dad, I loved it. And it was at times difficult because you did feel like the only one on the island. Hold on, there's a light switch here. Huh. More light. Anywho, I digress once again. And there was a time I went to Jamboree. Jamboree? Oh, Jamboree. I was the only dad. I was the only male there. And I really felt uncomfortable. When I was taking my son Connor for swimming lessons, I was the only dad. Felt uncomfortable. Not just because I'm fat, but felt uncomfortable because I was the only dad. So the great thing about this episode is Shannon and I had a great conversation, and we could parallel his experience as a stay-at-home dad and my experience and others, because that's what Shannon did. He got other stay-at-home dad stories that are part of the book. So there you go. Super excited to share this episode. Shannon Carpenter, once again, The Ultimate Stay-at-Home Dad, your essential manual for being an awesome full-time father. And I'm sure you already are an awesome full-time dad. I believe in you, and I hope you believe in yourself. So, without further ado, without boring the crap out of you even more, as the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Terry Crews would say, your success is my success. Shannon, I am
Yep.
so excited to have you here. I was so thrilled to see who, I can't remember who, if it was a Jason Kreidman that put it out, or your info on LinkedIn, and I'm like, oh, I got to get a hold of him.
It might have been. I don't know. My wife might have. She's got a bigger reach there than I do.
Um, you know, I didn't want to. I wasn't going to mention it, but I'm going to mention it because I think
Go ahead.
from dad to dad, guy to guy, writer to writer.
Hmm.
Um, my next book was going to be all about stay-at-home dads, and now I'm like, I don't know. If now I'm like, you've written the book, Shannon. I'm like, do we need
Sorry.
another book? No, you're
We need
good.
more
You're
dad
good.
books. I will tell you that. That's the one thing that I want to see in the world is more good dad shit because I'm tired of the bad stuff. The condescending crap.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And, I'm happy you bring that up because, for years, my dad has, we'll have conversations and he'll say, I'm really sorry I was a bad dad. And I'm like, you've got to stop that because I caught myself doing it. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, and you're so right, Shannon. We need to, as men, as dads, we need to stop that crap.
Yep. Well, and you can get more results too instead of shaming dads if you show them actually how to do it. The way we talk about fathers now puts them in the back seat of parenting, and then we're shocked when they're in the back seat of parenting because we don't tell them what to do or how to do it or encourage that to do it, including paternity leave. So I want to change that. That's kind of the goal for me, I think, going forward.
Well, before we both get on our tangents,
I
let's.
know.
And that's why I'm so excited to have you here. So, Shannon Carpenter, your new book, The Ultimate
Mhm.
Stay at Home Dad, your essential manual for being an awesome full time father. And I'm going to say this like I have said this to other guests. I wish I had this book when I was a stay at home dad. So, and also at the same time, man, I wish I had written my book first. But I'm still excited for you. You've got some great chapters in the book, and we'll talk about that. But let's. What was the aha moment for you to say, you know what? I need to write a book.
You know, it's funny the way that kind of came about because originally my book started off as a memoir because there's just wasn't many, parenting dad voices out there. And the way I've parented and the things that I've seen I thought were funny. And I'm a humor writer in general. So I crack a lot of jokes, a lot of inappropriate jokes, that I try to clean up when I go on TV and things like that. Um, I actually have a group of guys around me and said, no more dick joke, Shans. I'm like, oh, just one more, just one more. So
You
I
can,
was
and
telling,
you can do I'll tell you, Shannon,
uh
open forum. If you need to do a dick joke here or there,
you
you
know
have,
what? It's going to pop out sooner or later. How's that?
hey ho.
So I submitted my book and my agent submitted my book everywhere and a editor at Penguin, James Jo, great guy, said, hey, I love your voice, I love the humor, let's put advice in it. I was like, well, how much? And he said, all of it. And I said, oh, you just want a new book? And he said, yes, there's a hole in the market. And I looked and he was right. There was no dad advice, like good dad advice. Everything was just kind of crap. It was telling us how to get back to work faster or how to help your wife. It's the term help your wife I hate because I'm not helping my wife, I'm parenting. I need to do my fair share. And so that was kind of the aha moment. So I was reading a lot of these books that talk about fatherhood and kind of give you some behind the scenes stuff. And I just hated them. I just got mad. And that was the aha moment. That's how it happened.
The one thing that comes to mind is when you talk about like relationships and marriage,
Yeah.
and I can't remember if it was Jim Rohn. I think it might have been Jim Rohn. Uh, he talked about relationships are not 50-50. Relationships are 100%, 100%.
Hmm.
And in my space, the blended family, the divorce, single dads, it's not about, your former spouse doing their fair share and you're doing whatever. It's about the kids, and it's about 100%, 100%. And it breaks my heart when you you hear stories of, and unfortunately, and that's why I'm so happy, you're
Hmm.
talking earlier about, let's turn let's turn these stories into positive. Is I'm personally tired of hearing, the deadbeat dads, and I'm tired
Yes.
of hearing, you know uh, those horror stories. But you know what, it goes both ways too. There are
Yeah.
deadbeat moms or deadbeat dads, but the bottom line is you should be responsible for, that kid that you brought in the world at 100%, not just, well, I'm just leaving her off with baby
Hmm.
mama. No, you're part of that child's life.
Yeah. And I think it's a good point because the 100%, 100% I think is a really good way to look at it because when well, those are my kids. They're not someone else's kids. Those are my kids. And not only can I do that job as a father, at least learn to do it as I go along, um, I want to do it. And I found most dads around me want to do that. The idea of this bumbling father is dead and gone. It makes for a great laugh, and I certainly have used it in the past. But that's just not who we are, man. There's dads, we want to be around our kids. We have joy, that bond that comes from being around your kids and watching them every day and reaching those milestones with them or figuring out the next step. That's our job. No matter what else is going on in life, that's my constant. That's my true north.
Yeah, and you're talking about senior kids. Again, as a
Hmm.
divorced dad, I was that typical, only had my son every other weekend. And
Hmm.
right now, you know the whole cliche of, time flies. Well, I went from, being married, taking my son with his mom, the three of us walking him to the first day of kindergarten, to I just saw him last Saturday. He came into town from college for a weekend. He just needed to get away, and I'm just like, holy crap, Shannon, where did time
It
go? And
flies, doesn't it?
it does fly. And then the Catholic guilt sets in, going, well, was I good enough dad? Did,
Yeah.
is he, he's at college, is he, drinking every day, is he doing his homework? I mean, did I really screw him up, or is he a good citizen? And so, that's where my that's where my mind is these days, Shannon.
But I think those are good questions that every good father asks, though, because if you're not asking those questions, if I did this right, what I could have done better, then you have no self-reflection. Which means you probably don't care, which is not the type of father we all need in our lives and need to encourage. I think those are actually great questions. Did I do this right? Am I doing this right? Look, I know I wrote a book on how to be an ultimate stay-at-home dad. I wrote it, I read it, it's great, but I still ask my questions all the time. Am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? And I don't think they're bad questions to ask.
One of the questions I picked up from a past guest on this podcast was having those difficult questions with your kids at an early age, and what they meant was asking your kids how you're doing as a parent. And I was hemming and hawing on it,
Hmm.
and I was like, you know what? My son was a captive audience. One day I was driving him to hockey practice, and I just looked at him. I said, his nickname around here is Dude. He doesn't drink White Russian, as far as I know. But anyway, uh,
A nice sweater for him back there somewhere, does he?
yeah,
Maybe a Persian rug.
Persian. It really makes the room. So
Come on,
yeah,
man.
thank you for getting that, Shannon.
You're welcome.
And I asked him. I said, "Dude, how am I doing? I mean, where can I improve? How can I support you?" And he just looked at me, and my dad cracks up when he talks to my son, his grandson, and goes, he's a man of few words. And I'm like, yeah, yes, he is. Unless you're talking sports, that's another topic with him. But I said, how can I be better? And he's just like, Dad, you're doing a great job. And so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna take it for what it's worth. But I believe, like you're saying, Shannon, we need to have those conversations with our
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah, even the hard ones, man, especially given what's happened in the last couple of years, just the turmoil that we've all been through. And my kids are teenagers now, or at least two of them are. I still have an 8-year-old, but going through some of these things that they're seeing, you can't hide or protect them for the hatred and the racism and the things that they've seen. And learning to deal with that and confront that has been a conversation in this house, which is a really good conversation, but it's hard. But going through it together, I think, is the point. And the one thing I got a piece of advice not too long ago is the importance of listening rather than talking, which is hard for me. As an extrovert and a humor writer, sometimes I don't think I ever shut up. But to sit back and listen to my daughter and my kids and ask them the questions and then let them come to conclusions. And then let's talk about those conclusions. And I think that teaches those kind of analytical abilities that we want, but they often bring out different points that maybe I haven't considered from my own little bubble. And I enjoy that. I think that's a good thing to do.
Well, and just to not to self promote, but in
Go ahead.
my first book, 25 Tips for Divorced Dads, the way I visioned it and wrote it was I wanted it to be a workbook at the same time, where sure, I put these tips in, but I also wanted essentially dads sitting down with their kids, coming up with their own tips and their own. One of them was talking about made up holidays. But you're right; it's about having those difficult conversations and just hearing their point of view, because they could have something totally out of left field, and you're going,
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way.
That is, it's true, and it's happened a lot here. And even, hearing you talk about your book, the way you kind of structured it, I think that's what dads really want too. Is, yes, we do some sentimental, but we need straightforward advice, man. We need get to the point, get to the bones of it. Tell me exactly what to do and why it works, and then give me steps to implement those. I think that's the kind of advice that dads work, and I think that's the advice you don't see for many dads on the websites and the parenting sites. They're just not geared to us, or the articles can be somewhat condescending, and so you don't reach as many dads. I think if you use humor and straightforward advice, I think that's the best way to go. I really do.
I agree. I totally agree with you on that, because you can sit down and have those serious conversations with your kids, but if you come from a different angle, a different point of view, just to get them to open up, you
Yeah,
know that, I mean, that's what we're trying to do as dads, as parents, is just build that safe space with our kids. I mean, it hurts when you read stories and you hear stories of kids running away because they didn't
Hmm.
feel safe in the house, saying, simply saying, I'm gay, and
Hmm.
not having the opportunity to be able to express themselves. So I personally, I just want to commend you too at the same time, Shannon, because, going over your bio and seeing, we're in some of the same groups together and
Hmm.
with same of the people, but I want to commend you because raising that positive fatherhood flag, and it's wonderful because I think we're in a new trend, and I want to say probably in my point of view, maybe the last 5 years, I'd say, really where men are showing vulnerability, dads are, you know, coming out to say, I don't know it all, but let me learn. And um, again, looking at, some of the organizations and groups that you're a part of, I'm just so thrilled that we're finally, Tim Allen's character, Tim the Toolman, drove me nuts because
Yeah.
he couldn't, formulate a sentence without either going to his wife or going to his neighbor versus, dude, you can figure it out. You're smart enough. And then right now I hear in the back of my mind, I hear my wife going, "You're an idiot. It's a TV show. I get it. I get it."
Yeah, but that's how how fatherhood has been portrayed. I mean, you can look back for years and years and years, um, and it's just not the truth of the reality anymore. We're not helpless. I mean, if I can change a tire, I can change a diaper. It's not rocket science, right? It really isn't. And so, the biggest thing that I think is just trust. Trust yourself. Just because a dad's way is different does not mean it's wrong. And we need to remember that when dad parents. The best thing you can do for him most times is just kind of get out of their way and let him figure it out. Um, and that's one of the things I advise a lot of the dads that come through my group here is, you got this. It's not that hard. There's going to be the mental health stuff is harder than the physical stuff. It's exhausting. Don't get me wrong, but you can figure out all the other stuff. You'll be all right.
You're talking about, the stay-at-home dads and
Hmm.
figuring it out. Talk about on the job training. I mean,
Yeah.
for me personally, Shannon, I mean, I'm an only child. I was never around other, babies. I never
Hmm.
babysat. And so when I said to my first wife, I go, I want to be a stay at home dad because, growing up, having a divorced family and not getting the opportunity to see my dad as much as I wanted to, I wanted to be a stay-at-home dad, and it was the scariest thing, but it was the most rewarding thing ever.
Yeah, especially when you start figuring things out that work for you, and you might get looks. Like I kept a wet dry vac in my kitchen for years, just because when my kids, when they were toddlers, when they would dump cereal and milk and all this kind of crap on the floor, it's the best thing to pick it up. And the kids, when they're like age 1, they love to do it, so they just did it. And we had a lot of those little victories like that as they grow up, and we still have them now, from toddlers to teenagers. And I live for that. I live for creating those memories because those are what are basically my paycheck. When all this big show is over, that's what I'm going to look back on, not how many hours I spent at the office.
Definitely. And since you touched on it, let's touch on the book, The Ultimate Stay-at-Home
Hmm.
Dad. So some of the chapters in the book, um, you know, I have to laugh going, again, I wish I had this book. Let's see, he's 18, so I don't do math. Anyway, um, the 7 chapters of the book,
Yep.
lucky number 7, I guess, I don't know. Number 1, starting out as an at home dad.
Yeah.
So, what did you do any research on being a stay at home dad? Did you talk to other dads? Did you talk to moms? YouTube? I don't know. Yeah.
No, because yeah, there was nothing. I can tell you my first date was January 1st, 2008. And there was two guys writing about being a stay-at-home dad online, Mile High Dad and Rebel Dad, and that was it. And it wasn't really a how-to. It was just like, hey, we're doing this. So I had to figure everything out as I went, and it could get very lonely in the beginning, very isolating. I went into it with such high confidence, and within a month, I was just kind of broken. And I was just like, this sucks. I'm not doing a good job and I have no idea what I'm doing because I couldn't find a group. I couldn't find my people and my tribe. And those were hard things to kind of learn to do as I went along. And it's truly why I wrote the book. Like when you start, the first thing I advise guys that are starting to be a stay-at-home dad or just a dad, to be honest with you, is get your job description in writing. Let's set expectations down. And I know it sounds funny because it's meant to, right? But the truth of it is, you need to get clear expectations of what your responsibilities are, what's the spouse's responsibilities, um, and then how that's going to work. Because that will take away so many arguments and so many fights. You can say, okay, this is what I need to do. And then you can focus on that. And for me, that really, really worked. And that's what I kind of go through the first chapter, that and your own self worth. Because the only self worth you need to worry about is the worth that your kids place on you. And that's enough.
Oh my gosh, that is I think that's it right there,
Yeah.
encompassing the whole book, because you know your kids represent you, and if you're a screw up, your kids are going to be a screw up.
Yeah. I had a dad, one of the dads I interviewed for the book, because I interviewed 57, and I would talk to these dads just for a quote, is all I could actually put in the book, but I would talk to them for hours because they were so passionate. And not Gabe, Mitch up there in New York, great guy. He just got so passionate, and he told me, he said, "Be present, you know, be in that moment." He called it dad activism is what he called it. So, and I heard those words, and I've always done that, but the way he said it was great. So, thanks, Mitch. Giving a big shout out to Mitch out there.
Mitch, thanks for playing. Love you.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things I because when I was going through that journey, I reached out to moms that I knew of, and I'm like, well,
Mhm.
what can I expect? What do I need to do? And the best advice I got was make sure you get a shower in every day. And
Yeah.
so the my little trick was, and I think you'll appreciate this, and that was, so I put my son Connor in his little swing, just get
Hmm.
him to swing, and then I'd have ESPN on.
Yep.
Go grab a quick shower, and if it's a one of those days where I'm like, oh, I need to shave, I'd put him in another little thing and just let him sit there and bounce, and as I'm shaving. So that was the one advice I heeded throughout my 2 years as a stay-at-home dad.
I wasn't too much. Yeah, the shower is important because it's hard when you're by yourself, right?
Right.
So my wife was gone for the first month that I was a stay-at-home dad. She was up in Kansas City getting setting up she was getting a new job and we were going to move. So 30 days I did by myself, and I had a 15-month-old daughter and a 3-month-old son, and my son could not, he would lose it every time I left his field of vision, right? Just even that limited field of vision. I just took the shower curtain off. I did. I brought him in there. I said, "Sit, boy. We're gonna shower." And he would either play in his little thing, just watching me, or I would take him in the shower with me. And I did that for the entire month. That's how I showered because it makes you feel more refreshed and it protects your mental health. And you need to do things like that. So not much different than what I did.
Yeah, and I was worried that I overstimulated him, and with watching maybe too much cricket replays. I don't know. Um,
It is a fascinating
it
sport,
is,
right?
it is. So I'm truly blessed that I didn't screw him up too much. I did have the one incident where uh, stupid me answered the phone. He was up on the bed, and I turned and went to answer the phone. I'm sure enough, he fell off the bed, but you know, these things
It
happen.
happens. Yeah, that's just called parenting,
Yeah.
man. That's like the least of your worries.
um, you're talking about the mental health, and we're actually
Hmm.
recording this in October, and October has several um, days dedicated to mental health. Before we start recording, you're talking about Movember coming up.
Hmm.
Why is mental health so close to you?
I think the one thing that I saw, and even from my own personal experience, is we're dads and men in general just too stoic about it. We pretend that everything is okay and that we're never stressed and that we don't have mental health issues. And so we tend to ignore it, which tends to make it worse, which has an effect on your family and on your kids, and especially the way that they see themselves. So in the book, I wanted to make sure that that wasn't ignored. And the only way to do that, though, was to come clean with my own mental health stuff. From anxiety is my bigger one, a little bit of depression, but it's hard to talk about those things and write about those things because you feel so just exposed. But it's the most important chapter I got in there. It's to recognize it, and I felt I felt strange writing those words about my own mental health, like how to deal with anxiety, how to take care of yourself, encouraging guys to go to therapist or just have someone that can lean on, right? But then a bunch of guys that I interviewed started opening up to me and started sharing their life hacks and tips on how to deal with that. And it gave me more courage to share. Those guys were great.
Well, again, I that's where I'm so happy for men like you speaking out, and also extracting, other men's stories, because I do feel that we, men, are coming out of the 1950s where, go rub some dirt on a kid, I'll give you
Yeah,
something to cry about. And it's now, your kids are crying, let's get to the root of it again, versus why are you crying, what is your problem? And
yeah.
I as
It,
somebody
it
as somebody who also has dealt with depression for many years and suicide, and again, I'm just so grateful for you.
Thank you. Well, I'm grateful to those guys who gave me the courage to do it because it's really them. Because I don't know if I'd ever do it by myself, and that's kind of proves the point. Is it is fucking hard to talk about, but it's necessary. And with Movember, the organization that advocates for men's mental health, that's why I'm thankful for them to encourage guys to go out there and get help because we all have worries. And as a father, it just seems those worries were multiplied because now it's not just me you know it's my kids, and that's a whole new level of stuff, right? And I can't be bouncy Mr. Go-To guy every day. I try to be, but it just doesn't happen, right?
Right.
So yeah, I've gone for help. It's no big deal.
No, no, it's and I'm sure you've come across, other men finally realizing it's not a weakness, it's a strength, asking for help.
It is, and it's hard, and I think David Stanley's kicks off this book. He's a dad that I talked to, and he put it a great way. He said, "Men are fixers," and
Hmm.
I'm paraphrasing here. He says, "But to fix anything, you need to have the tools in your toolkit, and to go get the tools is not a sign of weakness. You can't do this shit alone. You need help." And when he told me that, and it was just almost in passing for him, it just hit home so well with me. I was like, "Oh, I got to share that with everybody. That's fantastic."
Um, staying someone staying on this topic, but chapter 3 in your book, joining
Yeah.
or creating your own dad's group.
Hmm.
I'll never forget, many many years ago. I think it was right along when I first joined LinkedIn,
Hmm.
and I was in one of the parenting groups, and this lady chimed in saying, there's no moms groups I can find, and I responded
Yeah.
back in anger, going, where are all the dad groups? Can you show me where
Yeah.
the dad groups are?
See, I can now because
Yeah.
I went through the same thing. I tried to join a mom's group, and for a very short weekend, I did right before I moved, and they were fantastic. But when I got up to Kansas City, where we moved to, I got 30 rejections about joining mom's groups. And the dad's group is your first line of defense to protect your mental health. It's how I've always done it. And so to find a dad's group, the easiest way to go, I tell people, is City Dads groups. They run 41 dad's groups across the nation, one in Toronto. They're great guys. They'll hook you up with someone or they'll teach you how to start your own. And that's just as important because if you're out some area that doesn't have a dad's group yet, they can show you how to do it. And on the online, to break that isolation, to continue that, the nationalathomedad.org, they run a lot of online support and they do a convention that I just got back from. And so what happens is you're making connections with these fathers. And there's lots of places kind of like that, but you need to know where to go. Other kind of conferences. I go to Dad 2.0,
Mm-hmm.
which is a great conference to do and kind of really kind of connect with other fathers who are trying to take the voice of fatherhood and change it. Those are all three of the places that I go to kind of bolster my own, uh, you know, defenses against mental health and anxiety and isolation and all those things. I have a dad's group here, got a group of guys I've been with for 13 years, 14 years now almost, that I just don't know if I could have made it without
Um, City Dads Group, past guests on
them.
this podcast. Just want to throw that
They're
out
great
there.
guys. I love them. I do.
They are. James Lopez with Fatherhood is
I
Lit.
love James. Yeah, I talked to him this last weekend. Yeah.
I am headed to New York, and I'm trying to see if I can hook up with him next week. So hopefully I can meet up with him. Uh, yeah, James is
Yeah.
awesome. Um, uh, who am I blanking out?
There's James, there's Matt, the Lance. There's a ton of guys up
Yeah.
in New York. Yeah.
Have you heard of Father's Eve?
I have by John Francis.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
John Francis. Yeah.
Love that, what that's going on there too. And again, that's a great organization, a great way to kind of break that isolation, isn't it? To find your community and find your tribe. I know Father's Eve is a way to get together right before Father's Day and enjoy each other. And I love that.
Yeah, and I love the fact that he talks about it's getting together with your friends, your guy
Yeah.
friends, and then Father's Day is about being with family. And
Yes.
John Francis, I mean,
Yeah.
just I'm so excited. I'm hoping in 2022 we can finally do a in live good English live event here in Colorado for Father's Eve. Just I mean it's like you said, you've got City Dads Group, you've got the
Yeah.
National at Home Dads Org, Dad 2.0. I mean, again, this is I'm truly blessed that this is the way that fatherhood is finally progressing.
Yeah. It's one of those things too that when you find your community, you become a better father. Because the truth of it is, not only the isolation, but you have questions and you have experiences you want to share. And how do you do that without looking like a creep? Like, I bring this one up a lot. When my wife was breastfeeding at first, there's cracked nipples and all kinds of grossness, and she was crying and my daughter was crying, and who do I ask about that? What can I do to help? What can I do to make this better for both of them, or how do I deal with this? And having a place to go where I can ask those more sensitive questions, or at least find a mentor to get me through some of those tough times, that to me is the strength of a dad's group. It gives you those people to make a difference in your life right now.
Well, if you're a real man, you could have whipped out your own nipple.
That's what I would have done.
Yeah, I went there. Talk. You bring up a great point there, Shane. Talk about mentorship within a fatherhood community.
It's hard to find them, when you're just starting out because you're a newbie and you don't know where to go. But having a more experienced dad that has walked in those shoes, and then to give you advice or just an ear to listen to what your struggles are, it's a way, and I've said this before, it's a way to share the load, right? And that's hard for men to do, but it's invaluable when you're parenting with other fathers to share that load and to figure things out together. Um, and that's what's happened in my dad's group. We were able to share that load between all five of us, and we were able to show other guys that came in after us. Okay, this is what we do, and this is how we do it, and this is why we do it. But you choose your own way. But this is why we're going to help you out. And that's been a huge benefit to me and my community.
So I want to take a little bit of a step back, Shannon. And
Uh-huh.
so, why did you want to become a stay-at-home dad?
You know, there's a lot of different questions or answers, I guess, to that one. It's not complicated though. People expect that I had this big moment where I thought about it, and I really didn't. It was like, nope, I just want to be there for my kids. I wanted to be there every day. The story that I tell is, I was getting up, going to work, taking my daughter to daycare, coming home, and that was it. That was my day, and I didn't like it. It was not the vision of family that I wanted. And then when I thought about it, I talked about it with my wife, it was obvious that it should be me, that I should be the one to stay home. Not only did I want to do it, my personality is better suited for it. It's easier for me to be alone and a self starter. And then my wife had a better career check overall. Now, that's not to say that I wasn't, making money. I was in an office job working for the government, but all the things lined up that it should be me. And it was never a desire of wanting to or not wanting to. I knew I wanted to. It was just, could we make it happen? That was the moment.
I think the important conversation right there is having that conversation with your spouse.
Yeah.
I, I had a conversation with a good friend of mine years ago. Uh, his name is Brett Zachman, aka Zach, who runs an organization called Be Men. And we are
Hmm.
talking about his organization, and when a lot of times when people say, "Oh, Be Men," that's some kind of just strictly men's group. Well, it is, but at the same time, we men need the buy-in of our significant others.
Yes.
And you going to your wife, I mean, I went to my former wife and said, "This is what I want to do." And I remember conversation with her was, "All right, if you're having any problems, I'll come home from lunch to help you." And I'm like, "No,
No. No. Yeah.
it's
Nope.
nope, I got it."
Yep. And that was, that's where I say, when you set expectations at the very beginning, that's where you do it. you know what does that day look like? What happens if I do have problems? What happens if it's not done the way she likes it versus the way I like it? There's all those things you got to work out, but you got to have those blunt, they have to be blunt conversations, and that includes about money and finances. When are you going to pay the bills? How's the bills going to be paid? Is there an allowance? That's something I don't advocate for at all. This is the way my wife and I run it. Is the money she makes is our money. It's a way, because let me how to explain this. I'm working, I just get paid crap for it. How about that? That's that's the way it is in my head. I have a job, it just doesn't pay very well, but it's an important job that our family needs. So you have to have those blunt conversations with your spouse, male or female, and figure out how that's going to work.
You get paid in love dollars.
I get paid in memories. That's what I tell.
Yeah. That is true. That is true. I was just reminding myself in the back of my mind, one of the things I remember, trying to structure the day. And,
Hmm.
you were talking, used the word stoic before. One of my daily
Hmm.
practices, I read the Daily Stoic by Ryan. Where is it? Uh, Ryan Holiday. There we go. Man, need more
Well,
coffee, I guess. And um, the Stoic
there you go.
philosophy is essentially the bottom line talks about what you can and cannot control. Well, when you're dealing with a baby, you can't control them when they're going
Yes.
to sleep. You can't control them when they're going to be awake. So having some type of structure, and for me was just getting out back then, getting out of the apartment and doing things and letting him explore the world. What kind of structure did you have, Shannon? And if you can, did all the other dads any stories that came out of along the lines of structure?
So this is very intentional for us because we all figured this out together. Routine is hugely important with any age of kid, right? Because again, even with a baby or a toddler, you are setting expectations, right? They know what to expect during the day. So I have a daily routine. Get up, where we go on Mondays, and have a weekly routine. So those things switch around. So, like on Mondays, for example, the first thing we do is we get up and we went grocery shopping Monday mornings. And the kids expected that. And then we would come home, have lunch, then we have nap time, then we do a 4 o'clock pickup. That's Mondays. And then I would switch it around on different days of the week so that there became a weekly schedule. Like Tuesdays were what we call Adventure Tuesdays, and you could kind of go out and we would explore the city. Wednesdays was playgroup, and then the daily task all stayed the same. You had basically morning activity, lunch, nap. Right, that was their expectation. But during the week, that morning activity could either be at home or it could be out with the playgroup with my dads. Or on Fridays, we did a big adventure day on Fridays where the whole dads group would get together and explore the city or explore the countryside around us. And that kind of routine allowed the kids to know what to expect, which makes meltdowns a lot easier to deal with because there's not as many. They're like, okay, I know what to do. It's 12 o'clock. We got to eat. Then I got to go nap. And so it takes a little bit of time to set up, but once you do, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I remember learning that.
Yeah,
Learn, I mean, again, like you said earlier, there was really nothing out there as far as helping, stay at home dads with a lot of these, like your chapters, talking about the shop vac and
yeah,
the dads groups, and so yeah, it was trial trial and error. I mean,
it
I,
is. And what I tell dads is to incorporate the kids into what you like to do, because the truth of it is you are the attraction, right? It's not where you go so much, it's that you're with them. So we did Civil War battlefields because that's just a giant field and kids love fields, right? And we did things like that. And we've taken them different tours of things and old Victorian houses because it's old and creepy for the kids, but it's great for me because my mind stays stimulated. And that was a big deal when you're staying home, is how do you stimulate yourself without losing yourself in parenting? Well, that's how you do it. That's how I did it. I've taken my kids everywhere with me. I don't think there's anything in my city in Kansas City that I haven't seen, or even, I'll be blunt, maybe even Missouri. There's probably something, but I've been around a lot.
What have you learned from other dads as far as structure or um, mental health? What have you learned through writing this book?
It's a huge question because the answer is just a ton. There's some things that I thought I had down really, really
Like
well,
what?
and
Like
then
what?
I saw how another guy. So I thought I was pretty good at potty training. I thought that was pretty standard for me. I had it pretty good down. I used a tarp in my living room because why not? It seems like a good idea. But one of the dads I talked to, and this is one of the pieces of advice that people love, is when you're potty training, take sticky notes in your diaper bag and cover up the automatic flushers because those can scare kids when they're potty
Oh,
training.
that's right.
And I was like, damn it, that's good. That's genius. And it was just a hit after hit after hit with all the advice in there from these dads. One dad keeps a coffee grinder in his garage, not to wake up his kids when he needs a little shot of caffeine during nap time, right? I thought that was great. Ariel, he said, one of the other dads in the book, carry two sets of band-aids in your backpack to give the kids a choice when they get those owies, because that takes away some of the pain and some of the confusion. And there's just so much like that. There's a guy, Matt Strain, in the book who tells you exactly what kind of cast iron pan to pick out and what kind of knife you need to actually cook, and why you need a cast iron pan. And there's just so many of those things. And even on the mental health side, I've got a guy in there who talked about his experience about doing the isolation tanks. He does that to help come down. Another guy talks about the importance of his daily walk. He just throws in his headphones and listens to books because that clears his mind and gets him ready for the next part of his day. And there's all these little bitty tips that these dads told me that they thought were no big deal, but when I heard them, I thought they were amazing. They were a very big deal, and I'm really proud that they were able to share with me. That's a big proud point for me.
One of the things I one of my heroes, one of my dearest friends, Chris, he always talked about um, like traditions, but not just
Hmm.
normal traditions, just their unique family traditions. And one of them
Yeah,
was every Halloween, as he was taking his boys trick or treating, he would indulge himself for with a cigar, and that would be just something he would do. And I'm gonna say along helped his mental health is just I only do this once a year. I get to spend it with my kids. We're out, getting candy. Um, but again, since you've touched on it, what other mental health tips, either from your own way or from these dads? Because I still feel that that's still a bridge we need to cross is
it
helping
is.
more men, more dads out there.
I think some of the practical tips that I've used over the years that the guys have shared with me, I usually keep all the curtains open during the day. Sunlight is good. It seems like a small thing, but it's not. So get as much sunlight as you can. Get out of the house every day. even if it's just a small goofy adventure, or if it's just a walk, or it's just the park. And if you're not feeling up to it, trust me, get out of the house every day. Those are some of the small things that you can do to kind of protect yourself. And then find that one person that you can unload to, that you can share that load, whether that be your significant other or your friend. You know, for me, that's the biggest one. My wife, when I'm feeling the anxiety the worst, right? When it just comes out of nowhere, I can tell her, and she'll come put a hand on my forearm, and I find that soothing. You know, that kind of human physical contact does a great deal for me. So when you're dealing with your mental health, take those steps to protect it, and then don't feel bad about going to get help. You need to get a checkup just like you would the physical health. Same thing as the mental health. Go get a checkup, go talk to somebody, even if it's just one time. Treat it seriously, because it is serious.
Having conversations with, I'm reliving, when I was a stay-at-home dad with my first wife, and I never felt comfortable saying anything to her as far as, if I'm struggling, or, I need help, or I need some time,
Hmm.
or even talking about, I need you to do more. Have you had the need to have those conversations with your wife?
Yeah, often actually. And it wasn't easy to start off with. And I don't
Right.
think it's easy for any of us, because it's not natural for a lot of us to ask for help, me included. And it's funny you bring it up, because there's a section in the book where I get 5 wives together that all have stay-at-home dad husbands. They're the wives of our dad's group. And we talk about mental health and how to support your spouse in that. And what my wife said, I found very interesting, because I didn't know it this that she thought of it this way, that she often knows when I'm struggling before I do, and that she'll see it in my behavior. Yeah, I know, right? And so,
Well, I sorry to interrupt. I'm laughing because
no, go
that's how
ahead.
my wife is too. She can.
Yeah.
It's like a sixth sense. It's like a Jedi thing for women and wives, that they have that, and I greatly appreciate, your wife having that and my wife having that. That they just have that sense when they, you know, we're down.
Yeah, she really does. And she says that she notices it because I'm um, short-tempered more than usually. Usually I'm very easy and laid back. And she can tell when I'm not, that something's bothering me. And a lot of times I don't know what it is until she talks to me. And that's been one of those things that I'm just grateful for, that she was able to spot those things before I could spot them myself. And so I've had to train myself to be more open with her and say, okay, this is bothering me today, or I'm just not feeling it for this reason. And we work the problem as a team rather than as against each other. And I think that's important.
Or you can say to her, "I think this is the day we sell the kids."
Yeah, that's certainly come up.
Going back to the book, um, let's see. We talked about chapter 3 and 4. Chapter 5: How to have adventures with your children. And
Yeah,
I know you talked about, getting outside. A good friend of mine, Nate Harrison, has ad- what is it? Adventure Mile High Adventure, which is
yeah,
his daycare, and he is one of those guys that, number one, when people say, "Well, what do you do?" and he says, "I run a daycare," and I look at him like he has a third eye.
yeah,
But he is one of those proponents of, I'm not having these kids sit around watching TV. We're going to be out and about. And
yes,
especially, you were talking about this earlier, especially the, past couple years. That's where Nate said that was really where it was really important for me to get those kids outside, especially, away from, television and hearing things. So what type of adventures you're talking about, going around, the city, but what type of adventures can you recommend?
sure. So in the book, I actually list them so I kind of break them down for the new dad, right? Not just the new stay-at-home dad, the new dad, that I list the safe places that you can go and that you may not have thought of. Everything from the children's library, or the children's librarian, that's a person you need to become best friends with. They have more there than just books. My librarian is named Claire, and she's wonderful. Um, from story times to all that kind of thing. And then, of course, there's the bounce houses, and you can join Mom and Me class, and you can get a workout in because a lot of gyms offer like hour-long daycare, those types of things. And that's where you start. And then I tell you how to take it a little bit further and how to find those family adventures that work for you, from starting with tourism websites in your own city or your own county or your own state, to following bloggers who write about your city, town, or state. You start connecting with those guys. There's usually some sort of parents magazine, and I say for those, yes, pay attention to the big ads, but go to the back where they have the smaller ads, and there's some great adventures in there. That's how I found I took the kids to hand feed buffalo up in Nebraska, and we found it by just a 1 by 1 inch ad in the back of a travel magazine. Um, and so that's kind of how you start taking it even further. And then if you really want to go further and really get to some fun stuff, I tell people to visit Roadside America and then Atlas Obscura. And they have all these kind of different little oddities that are around your city, town, or state. And we started making a deal of that, so much so that every year we take what we call is a dad's trip. And that's 5 dads, it's 16 kids, and we pick a direction and go. And we've been doing that for 11 years. And we've seen everything from the world's biggest ball of twine to the world's largest pair of underwear to the world's largest chess piece, the world's second biggest ball of twine, but they call it string, and you can't confuse those because they get really mad about that. It is. It's like a thing in the twine world. Um,
Or String World.
or string world. Yeah, they're like no bueno with that. Yeah, I've seen like 3 or 4 of those, and then the world's largest rocking chair. But the point is, though, I'm getting out there with kids. I'm keeping myself stimulated, and we're making those memories so much so that we've been doing it for 11 years. The kids now have their own memories of those trips that don't include me, and to hear them talk about it, it's a hoot. It's amazing, and that's what I really wanted with it.
And you've nailed it on the head. It is about memories.
Yeah.
It's not about, it's like the running joke at Christmas time where the kid just got this brand new toy, but they'd rather play with the box.
Yes, exactly. So I just give them the box.
Yeah.
Whatever the box is, we'll make it work, and that's really what it's all about. I mean, they don't care what we're seeing as long as they're with us, and since there's so many of us with 5 dads and 16 kids, they have a blast with it.
Well, and not only are the kids having fun, I'm sure you dads are having fun too, of
Oh
just
yeah,
taking a step back and watching, you know, life in front of you.
it is, and it's how we bond as fathers. Like every day on the road when we're doing these trips, they usually last 3 to 4 days. The kids are old enough now where they can watch each other and have fun, but we'll sit back and just watch them and just talk, and that's how we bond together, and that's how we've maintained that friendship for so long.
Chapter 6 really intrigues me because this is where I actually would love to speak to you
Uh-huh.
off whatever you want to call this, off mic,
Uh-huh.
sometime. But budget side hustles and going back to work. Well, for me,
Yeah.
going back to work, I remember real quickly I would get strange reactions from HR when they
Yeah.
see that little gap in my resume. Like, well, where have you been the past couple of years? I'm like, stay at home
Yeah.
dad. And
Yeah.
they're like, what?
Yeah. So I wrote that because everyone's going to have questions about money, and it's kind of why I put it at the end of the book, so you'd have to read the whole book. But it's one of the bigger questions you get, and it's not just your daily budget, right? It's how to save money, it's how to find the side hustles that really work, because I have found that stay-at-home parents are kind of preyed upon in the side hustle world. They get a lot of scams out there, a lot of MLMs that we don't want to have anything to do with. And then
Exactly.
what do you do when you go back to work? So I break it down, and it's not just me there. I've talked to guys that are in the book that have side hustles at work, and I explain to you how to get one and how to find them and how to vet it. Because again, that doesn't work, and I've done that myself. And then I tell you how to go back to work. The one question that was never to answer that everyone asked was, "What do I say?" The same thing you just asked right there. What do I say? So I strip away all the stuff and I tell you exactly word for word on what to say in your cover letter and in your interview. And that's based on my own experiences and the experiences of guys who've actually gone back to work.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, um, You hear stories of, moms going back to work
Yeah,
and the struggles they go through. And then you go through it and it's like, oh, I get it now.
yeah. Exactly, and moms have been through this so often. Watch them, ask them, talk to them. Your experience is going to be a little bit different because you're a dad, but a lot of the same strategies work well. I mean, basically, it's going to take you time, but own it. Be proud of what you did. There are skills that you've learned as a stay-at-home father that companies want, and if you believe in that and you own it and you word it like that, things will go happen for you. You'll be all right.
Oh, I agree. There are so many different transferable skills,
Yeah.
going from a stay-at-home parent to back to the workforce. I totally agree with you, Shannon.
Yeah, I think actually in the joke, if I can say this here, the
Yeah,
joke in the book, the joke answer is you just go to the reporter and go, look, I can handle shit. I know how to handle it.
yeah,
Put me in a room, I can handle all the shit you want. And that's, it's a funny way to say it, but the truth of it is, what you're really saying is, I can handle problems.
yeah, yeah. My a few years ago, my son wanted to hear stories of when it was just he and I, and one of his favorite stories was we went for a walk, and he exploded out of his diaper, and
Oh, yeah.
I'm in a panic because I'm running out of wipes to clean him up, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, you know not only was it mental health breakdown, but I just wanted to go find somebody to hug and hold and go, I can't do this anymore.
Those blowouts have a way to break in a man. I can tell you that. Yeah.
Oh, but you're right. When you go back to the workforce and you go, yeah, shit happens. I've
Yeah.
seen it.
I got it. No
Yeah.
big deal.
Shannon, I am so grateful for you. I'm so grateful that
Thank you.
you've got some great stories in the book. The Ultimate Stay-at-Home Dad, your essential manual for being an awesome full-time father. I'm gonna say I'm close to awesome without your book, but I think I would have been awesomer with it. I don't know.
You know, I just the good dad advice, wherever that comes from, in whatever form, put it out there, man.
Exactly. Before I give you the last
Oh,
question, Shannon,
sure,
how can people get a hold of you, your book, your
sure.
humor?
Um, you can buy the book wherever you buy books, anywhere from Target to Barnes and Noble to Penguin. It's everywhere, including online. If you want to go to Amazon and get the copy that way. If you want to follow more of me, Shannon Carpenter Author is my website, and it kind of has um, basically what's going on now, but it also has a best of list of my best satire, parenting satire. And that's some funny stuff that I like to tell people about. And you can always follow me on Twitter at Hossman at Home. That's what I go by, Hossman at Home.
Is that a Bonanza reference?
Thank you. Yes, it
Okay.
is. I've had that nickname since I was like 10. But yeah, that is a bonanza. No one ever gets
Oh,
it.
we're kindred spirits. What can I
I know.
say?
They called me Hoss when I was growing up. I was like, all right.
I uh, I had the weird pleasure. Met Michael Landon. Um, I I think it was after my parents. It was after my parents' divorce.
Uh-huh.
I think it was about five,
Yeah.
because downtown Chicago there was the Sheraton Hotel right off of Michigan Avenue, and that's where my dad um, took me to for we'd go swimming there.
Yeah.
And the Sheraton back then was a prestigious hotel, and Michael Landon just happened to be. I can't remember if he was leaving the hotel or walking in, but I had no clue who he was. But my dad obviously
Oh, yeah.
knew who he was, and so that's my little claim to fame to Bonanza.
Okay. That works.
Yeah. All right, Shannon. Here's the last question.
Shoot.
If you could step into my shoes, actually, I'm
Okay.
wearing socks. If you could step into my shoes, what would you have asked that I didn't ask? If you could
Oh,
step into my shoes, what would you have asked that I didn't ask you?
that's a really good question. You know what? I'm gonna do this because I've never gotten to tell this story. So the way that I started writing the book, that's why I would ask, because what really happened there after I decided I'm going to write, right? There is a house here in Kansas City. It's in this normal neighborhood, but 100 years ago when it was built, the guy that built it was a little bit off his rocker, And so he built the front of his house like a castle. Like seriously, it's got like a parapet, like a tower on top of it with a big deck up there, right? And you can go there as a writer, or you could. It's not open anymore, but you could go up there. It was called the Writer's Place, and you could write there all day long. It was a place for writers to go. And so I wrote that first chapter you guys are reading. I wrote that on top of a parapet of a castle slash house, and watched people below me just walk away like little peasants, and it was fun.
Oh, wow.
I know, and it's a question I don't get to answer that one a whole lot, but I think it's so funny because as a humor writer, you're always looking for that unusual and goofy, and that was like the perfect place, and I was able to get so much done there just because I'm writing in a castle. It's cool. So
Do
yeah, there
they
you go.
do they do they have to close it because of the way of the world?
No, they moved to corporate offices, and
Oh.
the house got bought by someone in the neighborhood, and I was like, "Aw," because
Oh.
creatively, I love the house. Right? It is the inside looks like a typical 1920ish type of house, but the outside is a stinking castle. With you could go up on the parapet, man. It was cool. Even had little blocks you could look at people at. It was great.
I can't let you go yet because now
Uh,
I have a writing question. So, what
uh,
is your writing process?
so it's I don't know if it's unusual. It's just I guess everyone has their own process. But I usually think a lot before I start. I'm a very fast writer, so I think a lot before I even begin. And so I don't really begin until I have the hook in my head. What is the sentence that makes me want to read and makes me want to go forward? And once I have that, it kind of almost frames the entire piece for me. And that includes the book. And once I got that, I run, I go. And I usually get done first drafts pretty quickly and then take twice as long to edit, which I think is just normal writer's life.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
that's what happens. Sometimes I don't know where I'm going, and sometimes the bigger points won't stand out until I've written the first draft, and then I'm saying, nope, I need to go back, and this is the biggest point I need to make and concentrate on that. But that's how it works for me usually.
Yeah. I had Adrian Danter, who's a sports writer, and I was curious about his, and because when he was a beat writer for here in Colorado for the Colorado Avalanche, he talked about writing fast, and he talked about because you had your
Yeah,
deadlines, especially,
yeah,
the game's over, you have less than maybe an hour to get your story in. Um,
yeah.
I wish I could. I wish I was a faster writer.
It's one of those things, especially when you're passionate about it. To me, the way it comes quickly to do that. And even with deadlines, because I have deadlines now with like I wrote a CNN article the other day, but they're asking me, and I'm pitching stuff that I have a genuine interest in. Like the article in CNN was for paternity leave, and I was like, I got it, and I just
Mhm.
ran, I just ran so fast with that one. I got the whole piece done in like 2 days. Um, and so if the passion is there, it's great. If I didn't have the passion, I had to write about something I didn't want to really write about. I don't know. I don't know what that would look like. It'd probably suck. Like if I was writing about cars, I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I know nothing about cars either. I could talk to you all day about writing, but I know you've got a life,
I do.
um, and you've got kids. Again, Shannon, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. The ultimate stay-at-home dad, your essential manual for being an awesome full-time father, Shannon Carpenter. I hope this isn't the last time you come on this podcast. I really do.
Have me on.
I hope you.
Yeah, I could like we talked about before. You and I could talk fatherhood stuff all day long. I love it.